Hello everybody, thank you so much for tuning in today. So I'm Kim and I run Darn It Workshops. I'm based in Huddersfield and do workshops all over the place. So today I'm going to be showing you how to do some snow globes in a few different ways. So we'll be doing some, which always sounds really daft, where they're dry snow globes, just because then you can put nice little bunting on it. I say nice bunting, this one I didn't realise one of my ones with water in had leaked in the box. So this one's got a little bit iffy, but it's all right. So you can do all sorts of different things with it, add different things to make some snow, and of course we can do some watery ones as well. So what I'll do is I'll turn my camera around in a moment and I'll show you what we're doing. And there's a few different bits you need. So mainly it's a jam jar. A tall one's good, although you can do really small, like cute small ones in teeny tiny jars as well, like this. So that's always quite a nice way to do it. Or you can even do ones in tiny tiny jars like these ones as well. So you'll need some plastic figures, some like little kind of bottle brush trees, or you can even do it with photos of your family and things like that. So I'll turn my camera around and I'll show you what we're doing. Give me one moment while swing that around. And you get to look at my plants for a moment. So all sorts of different things that you can use for this workshop. So main things are jars, and then all sorts of different little figures and things like that work really well for this. So railway people are a really good option. So I've got my little box here full of teeny tiny things. So these little railway people work absolutely beautifully for this. And you can get these little plastic trees. So things that are designed to be cake toppers for Christmas are really good for this kind of thing. So you can get like these little robins, they work really nicely. Little reindeers, all sorts of things like that. Other things that work quite well are if you get little pom-poms, sequins, bits of twine, washi tape, sequin rolls like that, and ribbons. Lots and lots of lovely things you can do. So what we'll start off with is one of the wet snow globes. So for that one, I'm going to grab a jar, and generally when you're choosing a jar for this, it's really good to go for one with really smooth sides like that, because if you have something a bit more like this one over here, then this is going to distort how things look inside it. So it's much better to have something with completely smooth sides. And as well, you want something where this bit isn't too tall. So we're going to put everything on the lid for this. So if you have something where it's up to about there with this piece, then it's going to be really tricky to work with. So to begin with, clear the decks a little bit. If you use a craft knife to just scratch away lightly at the lid here, just because with it being such a smooth surface, anything you stick to it to begin with could just fall away quite easily. So this kind of creates a little bit of a lock and key motion to hold everything together. I've just realised I'm just going to put this on my monitor as well, so that I can see if there's any questions coming through. So please do feel free to comment on things and tell me what kind of Christmas crafts you've been making and where you're watching from. So we've got some Yoo-hoo glue, and you can use this with, if you have a glue gun, this works really well to like bring up the height so that it's not quite so shallow on here. But unfortunately, just before this, I realised my glue gun was broken. So we're using Yoo-hoo, which works really well anyway. And it comes out really quickly. So make sure you've got an area that's protected. So we're going to start with this one by just putting a bit like that on and letting that dry for a little bit, just to create a little bit of height. So while that's drying off, we'll go on to another one. So this is going to be our wet snow globe, and I'm going to go on to a dry one now as well. So for this, we're going to use, in fact, I'm going to use a very similar jar to that, because I've got a few that are all the same kind of size, because they're really good for making this kind of thing. So again, we're going to score the bottom of it. And when you're doing dry snow globes, it sounds really, really daft, but it just makes it so much more versatile and you can do really lovely things with it. So if you're doing wet jam jars, wet snow globes even, you always have to make sure that everything you use is waterproof. So you couldn't use something like this, because one of these trees, if it gets soggy, then because it's wire, it just rusts. Whereas in this, you can put it in, you can put little bits of paper bunting on it, and it just works really, really well. And it means that you get a chance to decorate a teeny tiny Christmas tree. So these, you can find them all over the place, and they're just really nice to work with. So to decorate these, I've got loads of different options. I quite like getting a little bit of twine. You can use kind of brown twine like this, or you could use baker's twine, colourful twine. So things like this one here work really, really nicely for this. So this for me is going to be the base for some bunting that I'm going to put all around here. So I'm going to cut off a little piece. And then I'm going to get, for this, you can use washi tape or you can use bits of paper. All sorts of different things. So I'm going to peel some of this off. And then pop it on here. Stick it together so it seals over it. And then I'm going to cut it into some little flags like that. I've just realised it's a little bit dark over this side, so I'm just going to pop on an extra light. There we go, that's a little bit better. And you can get washi tape in all of these gorgeous different colours and patterns and things like that. It's always just finding the end of it is really, really tricky. Oh, just been able to see some of the comments. Fantastic. We've got someone watching from Maidstone, Lancashire, Mersey. Oh, good afternoon, Irene. Thank you so much for tuning in. Just going to trim those into little flags. And then once you've done those, I've got some little letter stamps over here. Oh, hi, Yvonne. Thank you so much for tuning in. So then you can stamp some nice words onto this. So if it was going to be a present, you could always do something saying like Merry Christmas to whoever it's going to. And this is when I realised I should have got the letters out in advance. Oh, hi, Debs in South Wales. So this is a Stays On Solvent Ink Pad. And I just find these work really, really nicely on all different surfaces. Say, as it doesn't work. So I've got a backup one. So is anyone making this along at the same time? There we go. So you can put letters on it as you go. And these ones I've just got from, I think it was the range. They do loads of different sets of letters in different styles. So it works really, really nicely for this. So it does work better in black, but as my black ink pad is not wanting to take part, but I'm sure you get the idea. And because it takes a little while to dry, oh, I say that, it's dried very, very quickly. So let's put a few other little bits of bunting on it as well. So you can always alternate between a few different things. You could get some matte paper. And put some of that on. So if you want to do something like this, you cut it into a kite shape. and then get some double-sided sticky tape. And then if you put the double-sided on here, and it doesn't matter if it overlaps a little bit because we can always fold it back to make it a little bit sturdier. It's always the thing, I can do this very, very quickly when I'm not on camera. So is anyone watching from Huddersfield? Oh, we've got Rain watching in Kent. Love Kent, I used to live in Canterbury. And I've got one of these sessions coming up in person on Friday at Frill and Flounce in Wyke. And that is a child-friendly session. So I've got one session's fully booked, but there's one from, I believe it's 5:45 to 6:45, and we've got 4 spaces left on that. So if you find me on socials, you can see details about that there. So I won't do the whole thing of bunting, just so you can see some different things. But then you could always tie this onto here, wrap it around. It's just always fun to decorate a tiny tree like this. And you can kind of hide the ends of it in there quite well. And then if you want to put some tinsel on it, you can literally use glittery pipe cleaners and they end up looking just like tinsel. Okay, so what we'll do now is I'll just put another layer of glue on that. So we're building it up a little bit. So it's got time to dry. And then you can also do things like put some teeny tiny pom-poms in it. So like on this tiny tree in here. Don't know if I can undo this now, I've glued it together. So you just put a tiny blob of glue on your tree. And then pop your pom-pom on it. And you can do the same with sequins. So I've got some little silver stars over here. So if you do a few blobs of glue at a time. And you can pop them all on like that. The only problem with Yoo-hoo glue is it does go all over the place. So then you've got a nice tree decorated like that. I'd normally do quite a bit more on that. But just to get on with it, then you can glue this tree to the bottom. You want to always make sure first though that it's actually going to fit in, because with these really tall ones, these bottle brush trees come in loads of different sizes. So I've got some teeny tiny ones as well. And I've had so many times when I've done this with people and they've put it in just to realise that the tree kind of curls over at the top. But that's not having that problem. So we'll stick that down. I'll put a little bit more glue on it just to be sure. There we go. And then kind of just push it down and swizzle it about just to make sure that it's sat on there really, really well. And then you can get some tiny people. So I always think it looks quite nice to have like a really small person sat next to your huge tree. Or sometimes you get ones that are sat down it's like this kind of one here. So you could always have it so he was sat in the tree somewhere. And you can create your own tiny little world in it. Like that sort of thing, like he's just chilling in a tree, because why not? And as well, one of my favourite things to do is put lots of tiny little animals in it as well. I say tiny, compared to the people they're quite big, but I quite like doing it so you have dinosaurs in a tree. So why not? So you could always have like a lion prowling around at the bottom, but before you stick anything down, you always want to make sure that you're able to see it from the side, and because of where that jar sits, that lion's not going to be visible at all, so I wouldn't do that. And you want to make sure, especially if it's one that you're going to put water in, that you don't put anything up beyond that ridge, because then it won't seal properly. So if we go back to the wet one over here, so with this I would be using things like, I had one out ready to go, in fact we'll use the lion in this one. So normally if I was using a glue gun, I would make it so that there was quite a big tall section at the bottom, but sadly this stuff isn't drying quite quick enough to make it really tall. But if that kind of thing's happening, you can always improvise and put something on the bottom to lift it up a little bit. But you'd do the same thing here and create a little scene. I tend to find in the watery ones I put less stuff because it's quite easy for it to look really, really busy, and you have to make sure everything is 100% waterproof. And you wouldn't actually put any of the water in until all of this was set. But to add your water, what you'd do, I'll show you how you do it on here, even though that's not quite set yet. So you'd use deionized water, which you can get from garages, Tesco's, all sorts of stuff. And you'd fill it, but not all the way to the top. And the reason we use deionized water is that if you use tap water, it can have little microbes in it that mean that it's not going to set completely properly. I say that water looks a little bit funny. It has been in the garage for a while. And then you get some glycerin. So this is easy to get from Boots and places like that. So it's good for sore coughs, sore throats. And what this does is it thickens the water up a little bit. So it means if you put some glitter in it, it's going to fall in a really, really nice way. So then you could get a pipette or something like that. Get a little bit of glycerin, and you kind of want a couple of drops of it to go in. And you can kind of see it falling in there. And then you want to give it a really good stir for a little while, because it does take a little while for it to kind of absorb into it. And then once you kind of can't see it anymore, then you get some glitter. And I would go for not too much glitter. I find often when I do this, people put so much glitter in that you just can't really see anything that you've put in there. So because there's that glycerin in, the glitter doesn't really fall down instantly. It kind of sticks to the surface. So you wouldn't give this a stir, because if you stir it, I'll show you what happens. It just sticks to your stick. So the way, it always seems really, really daft. What you do with it is you tap it, and then it will all slowly fall down. So if I try and move this, there we go. So if you tap it like that, it starts to help it go in. Because if you put your lid on while all of the glitter's still on the top like this, then basically it all sticks to whatever's on your jar. So I don't know if you can see it kind of falling down slowly there. But you keep doing that until it was all integrated. And then once your lid's completely dry, you'd screw it on. And if you're doing one like this, you could always get a photo of someone that you're going to give one to. I had this somewhere around here earlier. It's always the problem with this workshop. I always bring so much, I always have so much stuff. It's hard to see all the stuff. Well, if I find it. But basically, you can get a photo, laminate it. There we go. So you can laminate a photo. And then when that goes in, that wouldn't get soggy. And if you find one of like your kids or something where they're throwing snow in the air anyway, then that would work really, really nicely. Another thing that works really well for this is instead of putting things inside, you can do it where you draw on the outside. So I don't know if anyone watched the snow globe work, not snow globe, that's what we're doing now, the jam jar lantern session that I did last week, but we were using these lovely paint pens that draw really, really well on glass. And this saves all of the gluing and stuff like that, so it makes it a little bit easier to do. And you can just draw straight onto it and then put the water in afterwards. But I do find sometimes, like this little bit that's gone here, I've kept these in the garage for literally a year. And sometimes the changes in temperature over the season will just mean that because this water is freezing at the moment, it's started to kind of erode some of it, whereas normally this would stay on really, really well. So I'd recommend just being a bit careful with them. And when you store them, make sure you store them this way up, because I made the mistake of storing some from last year this way. And again, because of the temperature changes, some of it had leaked out and basically ruined some of my dry examples when water had got into them. So just do be a little bit careful with that. And you do need to seal these ones. So what I would do is put some of this glue, when this is completely dry and ready to go on there, so it's still not there yet, I put a little layer of glue around there and then twist it on and make sure it's sealed really, really well. And I'd make sure it's waterproof glue as well, so that seals all of the edges so that hopefully it won't leak out. But you do tend to get quite a lot of problems with this leaking quite a bit. I remembered one of the other things that I forgot with this is if you get these little kind of glitter glues, these are a really, really nice way to add some extra baubles. So all you have to do is just do teeny tiny, oh, it's always the problem with them, sometimes that happens, just teeny tiny drops of it, and you suddenly get these other tiny little lovely baubles. So if you're thinking of doing this at home, what would you be putting in your one? Because I'm always intrigued, because people find some amazing and unusual things to go in them. You can just add all of those nice little elements to make sure it's a really well decorated little Christmas tree. It's just always fun to work on something so tiny. You can always make a little scene with it. Like I've had some amazing ones in the past where people have had like little couples standing in the snow next to a giant Christmas tree and things like that. And then for these ones, you've got loads of different options for what you do for snow. So there's the base for this one. So for this, my favourite thing is to use beanbag balls, because they fall like glitter, not like glitter does, like snow does. They kind of just move about in a nice way. And the best thing with these ones is gone everywhere, but you can always take it out and change it up as well. So like if I wanted to add some decorations to this one, I could add it in afterwards. And oh yeah, so here on this one you can see the kind of mountain of glue gun glue that I did there to build it up. So when you're adding these in, you want to be adding just a little bit at the start, because if you add too much, you end up just burying it a little bit. And you can always do a mix of a few different things as well. So Chloe said, where did I get the little people from? And you can often find them in art shops. They'll be in the kind of like model making section. So like my local art shop has an area where you can get all little bits like this for making scenery, and it will have tiny people there, and they're just lovely to work with. Whereabouts are you based, Chloe? Because if it's somewhere I know, I can always recommend a shop that will do them. And you can use this stuff as well. Like you can often find this kind of fake snow, and you can get this stuff with a bit of glitter in it. So I tend to put a small sprinkling of that in. And then you can get a kind of more fluffy version as well. So I'm going to pop some of that in too. I wouldn't put too much real glitter in this one, but you can always put a little sprinkle of it in, because why not? And I totally forgot to mention this stuff as well, but this is like, again, this is kind of for model making. And I wouldn't use this in the wet ones because it does just dissolve. But if you put it around the bottom of these, it looks really, really nice. Oh yeah, Chloe, Hobbycraft should have them. And you can find them online as well. And you can get them in different sizes. So like the ones I've been using, I can't remember what scale they are. But once I accidentally ordered ones that were on a teeny tiny scale, and they are so small, like compared to the ones that I normally use. They're about that size, just teeny tiny. So with this stuff, you can just kind of pop it down. You can get this in all different colours as well. If you use something to like push it down a little bit. And if you want, you can always put some glue and then some glitter onto it. And it just covers the base. And I would absolutely love to see photos of any of these if people make them. And like I said, if anyone is in the West Yorkshire area, I do have a children's session coming up on Friday at Frill and Flounce in Wyke. Normally I do a few more of these, and I do kind of grown-up sessions where everyone can play with tiny things and make some very cute scenes. But this year I've just run out of time. So then you'd make sure with this kind of thing that you put it in that way. And then if I zoom out a little bit, you can see if you need to add a little bit more snow to it. So I definitely think I need a little bit more. You can see the little person sat in the tree there. And this is why you wouldn't go for one that has all of these little dents all around it, because it's quite nice to have that little element. But if it was all the way around, you wouldn't be able to really see what's inside. This is always the problem. Whenever you try and put more in, you do end up with beanbag balls all over the place. So we're just going to add in a little bit more of this. And pop that on, and you'll find yourself looking around the house and seeing all sorts of different things that would work well in this. And then you can always put a little bit of ribbon around the bottom. You can always do like this one, where you can kind of write something on the outside of it. All sorts of different options. So there we go. I think that is about time. So thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. You can find me on all sorts of different social media platforms, on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, all of those at Darn It Workshops. And thank you so much for tuning in. Please do send me photos of any that you make. Have a lovely day and Merry Christmas, everyone. Bye.